Hey there, Liron here. I hope you're doing well. I want to briefly discuss solving watercolor problems. It's tempting to think that there is a certain thing you can do to produce better results. It could be a specific technique you can utilize, or perhaps even improve your skills at. And it could also be using a specific visual tool such as contrasts, colors, edges, and so on. But the reality is, no such thing exists. It is true that when you look at an amazing painting, it was created in retrospect using some kind of a process and some kind of techniques. You could look back, look at the painting process and say, here the artist used wet and wet, here they used a mix of wet on dry and wet on wet, here they chose these colors, here they blended and blurred the edge, here they did this and that. So while it is true that an amazing painting was created using these kinds of processes and techniques, in my own experience, it wasn't the process and techniques that made the painting amazing. It wasn't this specific technique or action, and it also wasn't even the mastery of a technique or of an action. What made the painting amazing is more intangible. It's more holistic. It's in how everything works together. In fact, one can have very limited technical knowledge and experience and still produce amazing results. Meaning, you can be someone who picks up watercolor, maybe for the first, second time, maybe it's your first or second attempt, and you can still produce amazing results. How can that be? Well, by paying close attention to what is happening on paper. Because watercolor is a dance. It's a mix of what you're doing and then what the paint and water give you in return. The care to see how your brush mark and the colors you're using and your shapes, how all of these work, and being able to respond to that in real time will end up beating a lot of technical skills, and especially ones that are used as a crutch, sort of as a predetermined step-by-step process. This is why very often when you paint directly based on a tutorial on YouTube, for example, especially a tutorial that tells you now do this, now do that, step by step, very often the soul of the thing is lost, because the artist originally painting was not following a tutorial. They were following their own impression, their own intuition, and then trying to mechanicize, or, well, that's not really a word, but give you a list of steps they took. That list will always fail in producing the original result. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but it does seem to be the case that if you follow a list, you won't even be able to, even if you yourself painted the painting, you wouldn't be able to recreate it just by following a list, even if you're the person who made that painting and then that list. Now I'm going to share with you briefly a painting I just finished called Tarp 2, and it's the perfect example of what I described so far. As you may know, I sometimes have a hard time with colors. I can get a nice harmony by using a limited palette, but what about enhancing the impression using colors? What about going beyond what the reference presents, improving what I see in reality using colors? I'm pretty good at doing that using values and editing the shapes, but colors is still something that I'm working through and I still have not perfected it. And it's something that I seldom truly succeed in at the moment. Now, here's the kicker. I remember many times in the past where I tried to do that. I tried focusing deliberately on the colors, and I really tried getting them to go beyond matching what I see into something more exquisite. I may have had a plan in mind. I may have had something specific I wanted to try, for example, a specific color combination, and I almost never succeeded in capturing that thing. So how come when I tried doing it deliberately, it almost never worked? But in this painting that I'm sharing with you here to the side, I was able to do that. And to make it even crazier, how come I was able to do that without paying almost any thought to the colors I'm using? For this painting, I barely thought of colors. I just focused on something else. The reason I was successful is that true success, as I mentioned earlier, is more nuanced and it's more organic and holistic. It's more in the care, in the attention, and the perception and understanding of what you're painting. And yes, these things I just listed are very hard to perform on command. They tend not to conform to commands. You can't just decide to have them in every painting you work on. It just won't happen. Instead, they often come of their own accord when the conditions are right, when one is ready. And that usually happens when the only thing you're interested in is the painting and the subject in front of you. That's usually when you're able to bring in all your faculties and everything you have in your soul, so to speak, even if you don't believe in souls, and create something holistic and organic. It's not guaranteed that you will nail a specific aspect of the painting, such as, let's say, the colors or the edges or the values. None of that is guaranteed. But what is guaranteed is that it's all going to work together, and some aspects are going to be perfect. And later on, you can come back and comment on it, or even have art critics come back and comment on what you've done and say it was because of X, Y, Z, it was because of the values, it works because of the color harmony, this is why this painting is working, this is why this painting is not working. But you never set out to achieve any of these goals while you were painting. What I personally cared about, again, in this painting is expressing my impression. And funnily enough, and counterintuitively, by not caring about the colors, something magical happened where I simply created in the best way I can. Not in the best way I know, not in the best way I planned, but simply in the best way I can. Everything was there. All my mental faculties, once again, were there. And I produced something that is like catching lightning in a bottle. And it is, you cannot really recreate that on command. So I hope that perhaps this inspires someone out there to discover what it is for them, where the condition, the situation, and all of these conditions are met. And when you care enough about the subject matter and fascinated enough by it, and you're able to capture that lightning in a bottle, whatever that is for you personally. And by the way, if you're a beginner, if you have inferior technique, quote unquote, that's not something to worry about. These things will build up very naturally with some time and just some doing, some painting. What's more important, I find, is that lightning in a bottle element, which you can go right now, grab a piece of paper, get some paints, and create. You can do this right now. You can go this very moment and do this. Will your result be as good as someone who's also very experienced and is completely immersed in the painting process and knows what they're doing very intuitively? Perhaps not, but we're not about comparisons here. We're about producing the best art we can. So I hope you'll give it a go. I hope that inspires you. And if you do want to open up that gate of freedom with watercolor and find out the true extent of your potential, check out the frustration-free watercolor course. I'm going to put a link in the description box below. And also, if you're really serious about mastering watercolor, if you have a question that is really well thought out and something that you're really stuck with, but it fascinates you and you really want to crack the code, so to speak, feel free to reach out to me either in a comment here or send me an email or message on Instagram, Facebook, wherever I am. If you have got it really well thought out, the likelihood of me sending a really long and detailed response goes up. So I hope maybe you'll give it a try. Before we end this one, I do want to thank everyone who supports me over on Patreon as well. You make it possible for me to keep doing what I'm doing and providing all of this free content for so many people. I truly, truly appreciate it. More exclusive processes and posts are coming up real soon. I wanted to mention 2 of my paintings are going on an auction. I'm going to put a link to that as well. I think these are some of my best paintings to date. And in any case, take care, and I will see you in a future vid.